Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's Saturday, November 19th, 2016. One of the top news stories today is the death of the grandson of the congressman from Illinois, Danny Davis, a man who's been in the Congress since 1996. What I'm going to show you in this video is what is so suspicious about the reporting of this story. Last night, the grandson of this congressman was supposedly murdered in his own home. The grandson's 15 years old. The story is a classmate of his, who's also 15 years old, got in an argument earlier in the day over gym shoes, later showed up at the grandson's house, went into his house, and shot and killed him. And the night of the shooting, which was last night, the congressman himself went before the media and gave a press conference about this shooting, and in a very monotone voice, read from a piece of paper and went into a political speech about guns and gun control. Real quick, this volume's really low, but you don't even really need the volume. Just look at the body language. Notice how he's reading about the death of his grandson from a piece of paper, which should just seem suspicious on the surface. I mean, if you're going to go before the media and talk about the death of your grandson instead of grieving with your family, you think you'd be able to say something without reading off a piece of paper in a monotone voice. After we watch this suspicious news footage, I'll show you what's very suspicious about the date of the shooting, the grandson, the congressman himself. One of two things happened here, and we'll get to that. First, let's just watch the body language and the reading from the piece of paper before the media. Here we go.
Two individuals forced their way into my grandson's home. It is my understanding that they were aged 17 female and 15 male. An argument ensued, and the young male intruder pulled out a gun and shot my grandson in the head. His mother had just left to get some food, but in the house with him was his 14-year-old brother, his 8-year-old brother, his 16-year-old sister, and an uncle. Unfortunately, this is another example of a 15-year-old with a gun that he never should have had.
So anyway, I'll link this article. You can watch the rest of this if you want. To me, it's just, if your family member is killed, this is his grandson, meaning the child of his own child, you think the night of you'd be grieving. You'd be together as a family, not out reading from a piece of paper in a monotone voice about the shooting. Once upon a time, I used to just watch this kind of stuff in the news, and I'd say, that's kind of strange. I've always known since I was 18 years old that nothing should be trusted from this news. I mean, this is the same news that on September 11th, 2001, I was 18 then, reported to the people of the world that planes had been flown into towers, hit the Pentagon, flown into a field in Pennsylvania. If you were paying attention to that day, they reported in the news that they found turbans, which are made of cloth, they found box cutter knives, and they found paper passports that belonged to terrorists. They told you they found all those things while they couldn't find any planes, debris, luggage, bodies. They couldn't find any of those things, but they found paper passports. They didn't find the terrorist bodies, but they found their paper passports and the turbans they were wearing. So anyway, I was 18 years old then. Even way before then, I knew something was wrong with the TV and the way they reported nightly news, always in that voice, always so fear-mongering, always making things scarier than they needed to be. Anytime you turn on the nightly news, there's some outbreak, some virus, some boogeyman, some loose, rabid animal with rabies. That's the way it was when I was a child. I just caught on to that. I said, you know what? My life's always good when I'm not watching the nightly news. Anytime I turn on this, it's just straight negativity. And I never understood why anybody wanted to watch it. I never saw any of these crazy people, crazy dogs, crazy viral strains. So anyway, once upon a time, I used to just watch the news and say, that doesn't add up. That doesn't make sense. Like a congressman going on TV, reading off a piece of paper all monotone about the shooting of his grandson. And who's this guy over here anyway in the Nike shirt? Did Nike pay him there for some additional advertising? Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. You never seen my work on Nike? This is a very evil company. See my video on why Nike's in Oregon. There's nothing nice about it. There's a very specific reason Nike's headquartered in Oregon. But anyway, to stay on point, teen grandson of U.S. Rep. Danny Davis shot dead in Inglewood over gym shoes. Right away, I wanted to see what the name had a gematria of that Danny Davis goes by. That's not his birth name, but that's the name he goes by in Congress. Danny Davis, DD 44. Remember 44, D's the fourth letter, DD 44, shooting 44, kill 44. Number that has a lot to do with death. Anyway, the name Danny Davis in gematria sums to 113, just like mainstream, just like dishonest. I was trying to read about his history at his congressman page, and what I noticed about this page, right now, at the end of 2016, at the time of the shooting, we're at the end of the 114th Congress, which he's a part of. He's been there since 96. There's a new Congress every 2 years. Anyway, he's been there since 96, and the only Congress participation that's mentioned in his bio is from the 113th Congress, 113. Isn't that interesting? His whole bio, it doesn't mention any of his accomplishments in any other Congress, just the 113th Congress. Again, 113, important number to Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Scottish equals 113. It was Scottish Rite Freemasons that established this nation, built our government, and have always managed our government ever since. This is a nation run by Freemasons. Danny Davis, likely part of this Freemason network, selling out the masses. Freemasonry, the secret society that believes in divide and conquer, order out of chaos. And the secret society that runs this nation, the media, police, and more. Danny Davis in Pythagorean gematria also sums to 41. 41, the 13th prime number, special number to this nation. USA equals 41. Nation began with 13 colonies, 13 stripes on the flag, 13 years of public school programming. 41, the 13th prime. The date of this shooting was November 18th, which is typically the 322nd day of the year. 322 is the number of skull and bones. The Masonic order out of Yale has a lot of influence on our society. Skull and bones in gematria sums to 41. You might recall the 41st president, George Herbert Walker Bush, skull and bones member. November 18th, it's also the day that leaves 43 days left in the year. Yale equals 43, where skull and bones is. New Haven, CT, where Yale is, 43. Danny Davis himself was also born in the year 41 on the date September 6th, a lot like 9-6, the word Freemason, 96. The date November 18th in gematria sums to 96. Again, in case you missed what I just said about skull and bones, the Masonic order for elites that presidents, CEOs, politicians are a part of, affiliated with. November 18th, the 322nd day of the year, the number of skull and bones, 322. Skull and bones is at Yale, the day that leaves 43 days left in the year. Skull and bones is a Masonic order. This man right here, born on September 6th, 9/6 like the word Freemason. November 18th has the gematria Freemason. See how nicely this all comes together on this date? Special date here on the calendar. And he also joined the Congress being elected in the year 96, taking office January 1997. 96. From his birthday to this incident, yesterday, November 18th, is 74 days, or 2 months and 13 days, or 10 weeks and 4 days. Masonic 74, Jewish 74, occult 74, killing 74. Number of the Freemasons that shows up again and again in their wrongdoing. His date of birth, he was born on a date with 75 numerology. He's currently 75 years old right now. With regards to the 2 months and 13 days, a lot of black men in this nation's history have died by the number 213. Got several videos on this. The most easy and straightforward example is the death of Tupac Shakur, who died in the year 96. His last studio album, All Eyes on Me, while he was alive, came out February 13th, 2/13. That's the 44th day of the year, known as Lupercalia. Kill equals 44, Lupercalia 44. He would die 213 days later, Tupac, from the release of that album. He'd die on September 13th, 13/9. Tupac Shakur equals 139, just like Freemasonry in simple English gematria. Tupac Shakur, so many black men have died by the numbers 213. Interesting that the death or reported death of his grandson comes 2 months and 13 days after his birthday. As for 10 weeks and 4 days, 10-4, message received. Date of independence for this nation, July 4th, 1776, date with 104 numerology. Jerusalem in gematria sums to 104, has a USA right in the middle. Remember, the new building they built in New York, One World Trade Center, they made it 104 stories tall, 1,776 feet. 7/4, 1776, date of independence has 104 numerology. These numbers are all significant, and they all line up so nicely with the death of his grandson. He's also born on a date with 15 numerology, September 6th. His grandson dead at 15, reportedly killed by a 15-year-old. The date of this killing yesterday was a date with 38 numerology. The word death equals 38, the word killing 38. So does the age 15 in gematria sums to 38, how old he was. So does the name grandson 38, you know? In Pythagorean gematria, Masonic, Jewish also sum to 38 like killing. That's why killing 74 up here, 38 up here. These are the interrelated methods. As for this happening on a Friday night, could be coincidence, but just documenting, Friday night has the gematria of 67, like blood sacrifice, also connecting to Freemasonry. One of these numbers that we often see showing up in these ritualistic deaths, along with 38 and 44. Talked about how the congressman's initials are DD44. Look at this paragraph right here. His grandson, Jovan Wilson, was at his home in Inglewood with an uncle, his 16-year-old sister, 14-year-old brother, and 8-year-old brother when two teenage assailants entered the home and began arguing with Jovan, police said, and Davis said. The teen's mother had left the home to pick up food. Notice how they report the years 16, 14, and 8. What happens when you add 16 plus 14 plus 8? You get 38. 38, number we just talked about. Notice how they report it that way. By the way, the word teen has gematria of 44, like shooting, like kill. His name, Jovan Wilson, gematria of 46, like sacrifice, like Chicago, where this happened. His initials, JW. That's supposed to be a W, not a V. J plus W is 10 plus 23. W is the 23rd letter, V is the 22nd. That's just a typo, but 10 plus 23 is 33 for his initials, Jovan Wilson. The neighborhood he was shot in also has the gematria of 46, like his name, like sacrifice. They mentioned that the teenager who killed him was 15, and he was with a 17-year-old girl. Is any of this even true? Who knows? But 17 connects to his name, Jovan, connects to the word Mason, connects to the word kill in Pythagorean. And really what I see here is a bogus propaganda story. You know, for whatever reason, they pulled this congressman's number. One of two things have happened. Either this story has been completely made up and falsified, or this child, this teenager, has been ritually sacrificed for this congressman's career. And that is something that I have documented many times, the deaths of family members for these Congress people to sustain their careers. From Joe Biden to Paul Ryan to that congressman earlier this year where his child was supposedly decapitated on a water slide, to many other examples I have covered in the 3 years I've been doing this work. These suspicious deaths around congressmen, around celebrities, by the numbers, by the same numbers we're talking about here in this video. It's always these same numbers. The point about it being, in the gematria method where you multiply each letter times 6, using the alphabetic order. For example, G's the seventh letter. 7 times 6 is 42. Multiply each letter times 6. Add it up. Gym shoes is 666. Number they often code in this false flag propaganda. 666, a number of prophecy, and seemingly the Freemasons who run our police, who run our government, who create this, ongoing agenda of killing and death by the numbers, seemingly they're fulfilling their man-made prophecy. That's the only way I can interpret why they code these numbers and what these numbers represent. Look at what he knows about his grandson. Here's his words. He was a typical 15-year-old. He liked basketball. If you listen to him, he was a basketball star, but he liked basketball and music. Reminds me of the Dave Chappelle joke about how you better be a rapper or have a good jump shot. All those kinds of things. He was an avid sports fan. He knew all about, the stats of different players. Well, it doesn't sound like he had much of a relationship with his grandson, as he read so calmly from the piece of paper about his death. They mention what high school he went to, Perspectives Charter High School. I noticed that has the same gematria as the name. Makes me wonder if that's a subtle advertisement for this charter school. So anyway, November 18th, again, 322nd day of the year, a day that leaves 43 days left. 322, number of skull and bones at Yale. 43 numbers at Yale. George W. Bush, a bonesman, was the 43rd president. His father was the 41st president, connecting to the name Skull and Bones. Also the 43rd vice president. Jeb Bush, the 43rd governor of Florida. They give us the address of the police station, 727 East 111th Street. Gym shoes in simple English gematria is 111. That detail in the story about what the shooting was over, gym shoes. When I was in middle school, kids would get beat up for their shoes. You didn't want to have too nice of a pair of shoes. You could get jumped and have your shoes stolen. Fights do really happen over shoes in this world. It is a problem, our materialistic society, All of these stories that are propaganda, they hint at elements of the truth, how bad we are to each other, how little respect, how crazy we are. We'd kill each other over a pair of shoes. But the thing is, these stories, they're being falsified. They're made up propaganda to provoke, to steer the people down the path of agenda. All of these fake shootings in recent years reported in the media with the same type of rhetoric afterwards. This article closes out with the death of Nikia Aldridge, the supposed cousin of Dwayne Wade, who was killed the same day he was on TV speaking about gun control in Chicago. If you missed my videos on that hoax, which was 100% hoax, a made-up person, made-up story, the day after they came out with the shooters, and it contributed more to the race war propaganda. They said it was two brothers. Think about it. I have videos on all of this. It's all coded propaganda. All coded propaganda. Coding numbers of racism, hate. This gematria, it is a Jewish practice for the most part. And, again, I'll make this point. It is very clear that the people who we call Jewish in this world are not the real Jews. That's why they're Jewish. In the Bible, it says the false Jews will rule in the end times. It's not hard to see who runs this world, who runs your banks, who runs your media, who runs big industry, who runs this government. It is Jewish Zionists, the false Jews. Israel is the false Jew state. In the Bible, it also describes the Jews as having darker skin. The Jewish people of this world do not have darker skin. Well, except for people like Amari Stoudemire who say they've discovered they're Jewish. But the thing about a person like Amari Stoudemire, he might truly be an ancestor of the real Jews of this world. These Jewish people, the people who run our media, who practice this gematria, it's very clear that they have absolute hatred for black people who are seemingly part of the real Jews of the world. And that's why they've coded these divisive numbers and this divisive propaganda and often use their media, their government that they control to demonize black people again and again all throughout history. And even this congressman last night, who's going before the media telling this story that's likely a fiction, look at the way he describes his grandson, with stereotypes. It's all part of a big propaganda programming machine, and people are selling us out of all races, all colors, all religions. The Zionists, the Freemasons, they get to most people through the systems they operate, the money system. Danny K. Davis. Down below in the description, I'm going to link Danny K. Davis's contact information, his phone, his email. I think I'm going to be calling Danny K. Davis' office this week. See what's really going on. See if we can get Danny to spill the beans. See if he wants to be a real hero. Come out and say the truth of what's really going on in this world. If his grandson really was killed, maybe he can fess up and say what's really going on. Maybe he'll be the first to admit that he's been a coward his whole life and allowed people to be murdered around him so that he can maintain his position of power as a congressman. For anyone who thinks this murder by numbers is a joke, here's a little song from 1983. This came out a month before I was born. Let me give you about 10 seconds of this so they don't flag it. Listen up. Did you hear it? That's the Police, the band that sung Roxanne, It's murder by numbers. 1, 2, 3. It's as easy to learn as your ABCs. ABC 1, 2, 3. It's what gematria is. Down in the description, my how-to gematria video. You can learn these skills in 5 minutes. You can see through them the rest of your life. You can see what things like Nike are really about. Nike in gematria sums to 39. 39 is the reflection of 93, the number for Saturn, the keeper of time. And Nike's symbol, the swoosh, it's supposed to be a ring of Saturn. Just imagine the planet Saturn drawn in here instead of the word Nike with this swoosh going around it. Oregon was established on a date with 93 numerology. Oregon, the 33rd state, established on a date with 93 numerology. Number of Saturn, Nike 39. Of course, Oregon's also the only state with 74 gematria, numbers of the Freemasons, 33, 74. Numbers of the Zionists, 39, 93. Freemasons, Zionists, Jesuits. It's the international order that people call the New World Order, the Illuminati. And it's the order that runs this nation, owns people like puppets, such as Danny Davis. So I think we covered it all, Truth Seeker. Again, watch the full clip. Listen to this man speak in his monotone voice, reading from a piece of paper about the supposed death of his grandson. Those are the kind of things I looked at for over a decade and said, man, I don't know how anyone falls for this bullshit news. Nothing adds up when you're on the TV. Body language is off. Stories don't add up. Facts don't make sense. Always. It's always that way. It's never an exception. It's coming through the TV. It never adds up. We live in a nation where gun homicides do happen every day, and they never get reported. You don't even hear about them in your local paper. When they get reported in the national news, that's when you know it's the propaganda. Till next time, Truth Seeker.